Hello everyone, today I have for you a simple Yungasaurus Nilo Bloom deck with the main focus in staying alive. And let's quickly take a look at the deck before we jump into the games. We have it right here. So we of course have I Know. Why I Know? Because the burst can once again stay infinitely on the field, and when that is comboed with Nilo's Bloom cores, it makes for a very good end phase combo that deals a decent amount of damage. And since we are already anyway gonna be using item, we might as well have her talent card to buff our damage even further. But apart from that, a very simple food engine. Only notable parts about this deck: we have 2 copies of Harvest Time. Why? In the case of our opponent running Invalidation or any other card stealing mechanics in their deck, we want to increase the chances that Harvest Time, we at least, get to keep 1 copy of it in the rotation. And you can otherwise see I only have 4 food cards outside of Harvest Time, so even for that reason, running double Harvest Time here is a decent option, since you can kind of count it like these both can be considered as food cards. So in total I would actually have 6 different ways to obtain food cards in the deck for the food engine. Other than that, we have Genius's Upgrade once again for easy I Know bursts. Not a necessity, but as we get into the games I explain why I like this version myself. Of course, the Transfiguration, because if you don't play this, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Other than that, Arcane is the fight for the death. Why? I'll explain that in the games. Seed Dispensary to discount the Amrita, and you will always be picking Amrita with this deck. As well as Shudong and Liyue Warfare, of course, Liyue Harbor Wharf. Of course, these cards are here for the simple reason that they are 2 cost, and as such we gain more value from our seed boxes than just Shudong and the Blessing. But yeah, if you feel like the deck doesn't have enough food cards, you can simply replace Liyue Harbor with, Sing Your Heart Out, for example, or you can replace the Genius's Upgrade. But personally, I've in my opinion, like 4 food cards plus the Harvest Time plus Hydro Resonance plus Maidens, you have enough healing in your deck that you can draw enough cards so that the Harvest Time start to continuously appear in your hand round after round with this deck. It's mostly just early game, but I'm going to explain why that doesn't even matter, the early game shenanigans in the games. And with that explanation, let's get into the games. Now, for the first game, we have a Whale deck. Now, of course, Whale isn't considered to be meta anymore, but it's still very strong, especially against a deck like mine where we are, on the slower side. Anyway, about the game plan of the deck, of course, always start with Nilo. The Transfiguration Blessing guarantees us good dice, so getting that Nilo skill round 1 is what you do like 95% of the time. And if your cards are good, like in this game, my cards are very good for setup. 1 Nilo skill, full setup. That is the round 1 you want to do most often. Nilo skill just to get the Golden Chalice on the field. After that, full setup. You don't really need to go for possible round 1 Blessing Transfiguration or Blessing activation. You don't have to go for any sort of Yungasaurus skill to get food cards. You don't have to collect energy for Nilo. All you want round 1 is Nilo skill, so we get the Golden Chalice, and you want to do setup. In the case that you don't have good cards for setup, then you can entertain the idea of Yungasaurus skill or collecting energy for Nilo. But anyway, As in the quick short deck action card explanation, I mentioned that it doesn't really matter how many food cards, like having only 4 food cards plus the harvest time isn't a big deal. That is because most of the time you want to sacrifice Nilo. Now this does heavily depend on the matchup. For example, in this matchup, I know this will be a slow game, like my opponent will do almost no damage until the whale has gotten its belly full. Which is why in this matchup I don't actually sacrifice Nilo, but in the future games you get to see the game plan is very simply stay on Nilo, sacrifice Nilo. This is also why we have Fight for the Death, to increase the max HP of Aino and the Yungasaurus, of course. Now, if you want to go for the sort of keep everyone alive game plan, then I recommend switching out the arcane card for whatever you prefer using. Also a quick note, the reason why I'm running only one Fortress of Meropide, you see the problem right here. You cannot fit everything on the support zone. From personal experience, I can say the ideal setup for this deck is to have the Amrita Blessing, one Fortress of Meropide, one Chef Mao and one Shudong. That's from my own experience the best setup you can get. Of course, my opponent there fails to put Amrita at the bottom of my deck. Having this many 2-cost cards made it quite unlikely to happen. Also, my opponent here makes quite a lot of, why aren't they collecting HP for the whale mistakes? Because I'm giving them like all the time in the world to get that max HP on the whale. Not to mention, you can see here, like I'm keeping Nilo purposefully alive in this game because I know my opponent's damage is so small that keeping Nilo or trying to sacrifice Nilo in the first place would be pointless, because it would take until my opponent has like that. What is it? You need like 12. Or is it 9 now? Yeah, I guess it's 9. You need that 9 max HP for whale to get the maximum damage from the skill, and now that the burst damage has also, the burst summon damage has also been nerfed, the damage output from the whale isn't that great until the game. But anyway, usually you want to sacrifice Nilo, but back to what I was talking about earlier, keeping Aino and Yungasaurus alive with the Fight for the Death arcane card and the food engine. Why do we want to keep Aino alive? Of course, because the possibility of an infinite burst with the talent card. That is the simple only reason why you want to keep Aino alive, and why Nilo is the #1 character to sacrifice. Of course, there are exceptions. Sometimes you end up sacrificing Aino, but you should never sacrifice Yungasaurus unless you are like absolutely certain that you will win the game that way. But you can see here the Amrita plus Yungasaurus passive skill. We've started to gain quite a lot of max HP in this game already. And of course, because my opponent once again hasn't gotten any max HP for their whale, this matchup is currently heavily in my favor. Yeah, is there anything else to say about the game plan? Usually I personally want to wait with Aino's burst until I get Aino's talent card, but that is not necessary if you don't feel like it. Like for example in this game, the simple reason why I haven't bursted Aino until now is because like I wanted to get the talent card. I want the talent card for the extra damage, I want the talent card for the infinite burst. But since like we've gone this far, you might as well burst at some point. So there's it's not a necessity to fish for the talent card, but I do recommend waiting at least a little bit until you get the talent card, especially if Nilo is alive. Because then you have Nilo's burst if you want to spread Hydro. You have Nilo's skill and Aino skill if you want to spread Hydro. You don't quite need the Aino burst for that. Aino burst is more here for this setup. This is our like late game damage, because of course Yungasaurus, mostly the damage comes from the burst. So outside of the burst, we need an alternative source of good damage, and that comes from this combo right here. Of course, usually you will only have one Bountiful Core plus the summon, but that combo is already like 5 damage in the end phase. If you have this combo, this is 7 damage in the end phase. If you have Aino's Talent card, that's another plus 2 damage from your Bloom reaction. So basically you can get up to 9 damage in the end phase with just having Bountiful Cores and Aino's Talent card and Burst Summon on the field. Aino's Talent card, by the way, also the damage bonus is what we use in, or what we hope for in more against more aggressive opponents, where we actually like need to quickly take out a character. For example, the Abyss Dragon, you know, or a Pep, for example. You know, characters that get strong over time, where you want to actually deal damage early on. In those matchups, you really want Aino's Talent card for that extra damage. But despite all of that, the main thing about this deck is the fact that you simply stay alive. I mean, look at my characters. Everyone has over 10 HP. This deck, like, the survivability you have is ridiculous. Like, the city might be breaking and everybody might be shaking, but don't worry, you will be staying alive with this deck. Of course, this match will be a little dragged on here towards the end, because we don't have Aino's Talent card, and now that Yungasaurus is, you know, frozen, we cannot get any more Bountiful Cores, so the damage output is a little low. But like you can see, like, you just heal and heal and heal. Of course, the whale nowadays isn't considered a high damage character, I guess. I mean, you can absolutely do good damage, especially with Chaska bullets, but like, enough damage to take out this team? No. You will not be doing that unless you get like, I don't know, nothing but bullets discarded with whale skill. Anyway, just to, you know, flex on my opponent, I heal all of my characters here at the end. Like, you can see here, 12, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, like, look at that max HP. It's ridiculous. Anyway, let's get into the next game. Now, for the next game, we have Lunar Charged with Ifa. And what was it? Kokomi? Yeah, Kokomi. You can see here going for some setup cards once again and starting once again with Nilu. I also believe in this matchup I don't actually sacrifice Nilu, we have to wait. I think it's in the next game or the game after that where I actually... I should have at least one replay where I showcase sacrificing Nilu for today, but you can see the exact same game plan. Nilo skill, and then we just simply go for setup.
I know. Present.
Of course, oh yeah, this is something I could mention. If you want to get the blessing early, simply go to Aino, do Aino skills, because Aino skill gives you a fast swap. The moment your opponent, you know, it's your turn and your opponent has Hydro, you can just fast swap to Yungasaurus and do a skill. I was quite lucky here with the Inefa talent, you know, putting Untunable and 2 Electric Shocks into a free card. Of course, the Rainbow Macaronis are now slightly more of an annoyance with the cost increase and Untunable and Electric Shock, so I really want to play it. This is also once again like the Harvest Time case I talked about earlier. Why I have 2 copies, it's for reasons like this. If I need to get, you know, if this card happens, actually now, This is not invalidation, this is a bad example. If there was, for example, invalidation instead of cost increase, it would be good for me to have another... Well, it is good for me to have another Harvest Time in the deck that doesn't have any of those effects. But yeah, here you can see. Purposefully taking damage with Nilo. I could have stayed on I know with Rainbow Macaronis, Veterans, giving me a card. But I purposefully switched to Nilo here, because I want Nilo to take the majority of the damage, so that we can play our Arcane card at some point. We can it's easier to get the Amrita damage, no, not max HP from the Amrita onto Yungasaurus when you sacrifice Nilo, because you only have 2 characters that actually take the damage.
Yay!
Here I was going for, you know, trying to get the blessing, trying to do the bloom reaction, but I wasn't able to do that, so I just go to I know, and I do a little switching around here. We've gotten this far already. I didn't really see much point in purposefully, you know, just letting Nilo die, because of course if I would be quite slow at doing that. So I came to the conclusion that I might as well actually keep Nilo alive. Oh yeah, there was this funny guess I picked. Healing with the Mystic Soup, even though I already had max HP. Any case, I'm trying to remember what I did in this game. Okay, did I sacrifice Nilo? You know, if I burst? I honestly don't remember, you just have to wait a little moment and then we get to actually see. Perhaps I actually did sacrifice Nilo in this game, I just don't remember. Anyway, of course the downside here is the cost increase, making our food cards much more expensive. By the way, getting I know talent card is always very nice when you have the genius upgrade, because it's basically guaranteed that the empowerment will go to the talent card, it being the only 3-cost card in the deck. And the the genius upgrade of course can give you a 3-cost card.
I know.
That depends when
mind the wind.
When you play it. Actually, hold on. It depends whether you have played one earlier in the game and actually kept that 3-cost card, but then again it already has the empowerment, so it shouldn't matter at all. Yeah, I do think... Yeah, I actually keep Nilo alive in this game. Well, I think this was one of those matches where I was supposed to sacrifice Nilo, but then I kind of played cards without realizing that, hold on, Amrita is about to activate, giving the max HP to Nilo, who is of course the lowest HP character. So a slight mistake there, but I believe you should get to see it doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, here we actually have a reason, like this is why we have double also, double the harvest times. When our opponent does run something like Fortress of Meropide, it makes it less likelier to, you know, lose both harvest times to invalidation. I could quickly mention that Harvest Time also has great synergy with Amrita Blessing, because what this does is you have to play 2 cards. Well, after you play your second card in a round, your most damaged character gains 2 max HP. Harvest Time, when you play it, that's 1. When you pick the food card and play that food card, that's the second card. Meaning, with Harvest Time, you have an infinite way to continuously proc Amrita over and over again each round. So there is like, this is a great synergy the Amrita has with Harvest Time. Because of course if you look at just the Amrita, it's a very strong effect with the clear limit that once you ran out of cards, you can no longer activate it. But Harvest Time completely negates that, downside. You have nothing but a +2 max HP generator for each round with Amrita when you are running Harvest Time. And now you can see, of course, Ifa is very, very good at healing, so they will be staying alive here for a little while. But like honestly, there's no point. They realize that, they give up. Anyway, on to the next game. Now let's quickly talk about the more harder matchups with this deck. Now of course, basically any star deck, you should be on the winning side. Like against Crab, once you have that Bloom plus Ino's Burst, you just spam, Yungasaurus, you should be fine against even a good Crab deck. Against Whale, well, you already saw. What does it matter if the Whale gets max HP when you can get max HP? But the weaknesses of the deck, of course, because we rely so heavily on HP, Bond of Life, that is your worst matchup. Now, some of the Arlecchino decks aren't actually that bad, because especially now with the Pyro Crystallized Transfiguration, because of that, many Arlecchino decks early game, they revolve less around spreading Bond of Life and more around getting set up for Arlecchino. So those matchups, it usually comes down to, how lucky you are with your card draws, how good of a setup you get round 1. But I do consider like a good Arlecchino deck and a good Arlecchino player is definitely a hard matchup. Not unwinnable, but definitely hard. Second hard matchup, of course, combo decks. Like my opponents here, I mean, they have a Benny Burst, they have Hu Tao, they have Yelan Burst for Hu Tao. If they get neither of those combos out, it's going to be real hard for me. Once again, while I usually would straight up sacrifice Nilo, I here purposefully wanted to keep Nilo alive a little longer so that I could tank some of the damage that they are about to do with Bennett's Burst, because it's quite clear that they are going for that, and I don't really have any way of stopping that. Like maybe Harvest Time plus early Tandoori Chicken, I might be able to threaten to take out Bennett before the Burst, but in this scenario I was not able to do that. Of course, hoping to get Bennett's talent card, but they didn't have it in hand. Instead, we got Adventurous Guild, which was quite the surprise.
Teamwork is dreamwork.
Once again, here, because I know they were going to get Bennett's Burst, I need the Amrita. I need to get that reaction, which is why I went to Yungasaurus. Of course, I do top up on the HP here, making sure that I take as little damage as possible with Yungasaurus. But yeah, combo decks are definitely the second hard matchup. I also forgot to mention about the Bond of Life decks. If it's just Arlecchino, it's much more manageable than if it's the Frost Operative. Because of course, Frost Operative's talent card, that makes your life miserable with any healing deck, and that same thing applies to this deck. If you are unable to, get rid of the Bond of Life, you are simply screwed with this deck. Now here I do believe Yelan does take out Nilo, and you actually get to see the sacrificing Nilo part. So yes, I have purposefully not played Maidens onto Nilo because I want to sacrifice Nilo here. I am gambling on the fact that they don't have gamblers. I mean, they already played one for Hu Tao, but unfortunately they have drawn a second one already. And now this is quite scary. Benny Burst and Yelan Burst. Of course, trying to look positively, they only have 7 dice and 2 cards, so there's only so many, you know, attacks they are able to do this round, and next round it's only gonna be Yelan's Burst. And by that time I've been able to deal some damage onto Hu Tao with my summons that I might be able to hold out. You're gonna see here topping off on with the HP, and I do end my round on Aino because of course Aino is the character you can sacrifice. Now I was actually lucky they didn't have any way of doing more attacks this round, so Aino survives.
This is just my...
By the way, here you can also see this is what I consider the ideal support zone setup for this deck. Of course, usually how it ends up, you just put whatever you get first, you play here. But personally, I like this setup. It's +1 die when you play a food card, -2 die from any food card you play, or the first food card you play that isn't free. And you have the invalidation, which, for example, if this was a style against style matchup, of course, eventually if your opponent isn't also playing Harvest Time, they will run out of cards, in which point you can replace the Fortress of Meropil with another chef now. But that doesn't really happen. Like, I didn't really face any stall decks when playing with this one, so... But it's like, you know, on paper you can do that. Of course, here it's looking quite good for me. I have Yungasaur's Burst and 2 Bountiful Claws, meaning that after the burst I will immediately would get a Bountiful Claw to activate. But once again I got scared. I didn't, you know, if they had a way to heal Hu Tao and I wasn't able to take her out with that idea, it would have been really, really bad and they would have probably won. But my guess is that the invalidation and whatever cards they had were, you know, unusable to salvage this situation. Now at this point, like, they bursted, okay, now I know there's really nothing they can do. Just to annoy them, I do heal Aino up. I could have just done an Aino skill and sacrificed her after that, but might as well have a little fun. And you're gonna see here, like, we are already back to, like, total 20 HP on the field. Like, the amount of, like, Yungasaurus already was ridiculous when it came to healing. Like, you could go from 1 HP to more than 10 by playing just, like, a couple of food cards when you had Maiden's talent card on the Yungasaurus. But now that you have Amrita as well, it's just really, really ridiculous. Anyway, I have one more game for today. And for the last game, we have a Skirk Beidou deck. Now, of course, this falls into the combo category, so this is also a really more hard matchup for this deck.
Oh, you're calling for me?
And perhaps unsurprisingly, the exact same start. Nilo skill, full setup with 5 dice you get left over after that. And unsurprisingly, they of course have the Superconduct Transfiguration. Now, actually getting the Fight for the Death here early was very, very nice. It also makes it much more ideal to sacrifice Nilo. Of course, I do know that deck. I do know, like, the first thing that they are going to do is gonna be Beidou, collecting Beidou's burst. So sacrificing Nilo here is of course the play, because the likelihood that they would able to get any value out of gamblers by taking out Nilo, it's really low, the possibility that they had anything they could, you know, take advantage of, you know, gamblers and then get some extra attacks because of that. No, because they are going to be spending most of their cards and dice just getting the burst from Beidou. But once again, because this is a hard matchup, I want to get the Amrita as soon as possible. I switched to Yumkasaurus because I want to get Amrita on the field. Of course, now there's once again the difficulty of wanting to sacrifice Nilo before Amrita procs for the first time.
Yay! Playtime!
So what I decide to do here, because I mean it's obvious they have Covenant of Rock. Anyone can see their Arcane is Covenant of Rock.
Beauty!
I take the gamble here that they wouldn't have gamblers, and it works out, they didn't. So they get, or maybe if they did have, they had no way of playing it at that moment. Actually, once again, because I definitely know they have Covenant of Rock, they probably would have played gamblers if they had it. But you can see here, I simply heal both Aino and Yumkasaurus to as much HP as I can. And unsurprisingly, they played Covenant of Rock. Who would have guessed? Now this becomes a race of Beidou Burst running out against Yumkasaurus healing. And this is definitely, there by the way, a little miscalculation earlier in the round. I didn't realize that I'm going to overdraw a little, and unfortunately I overdrew another Chef Mao. But as you saw in the earlier games, it's not a big deal, you only really want that one Chef Mao for the ideal or personal favorite setup. Perhaps I should say it that way. Stealing Flying Squad is actually pretty good, because my opponent most definitely has a limited amount of 3-cost cards in their deck, and they need 3-cost cards to of course get the Serpent Subtlety for Skirk. So this was definitely a good steal with Yumkasaurus talent. You're gonna see I go all in on the healing. We have double macaronis, blade, and basically no other attacks despite except that one skill to get the bountiful core, so that next round, of course if they don't plan on sacrificing Beidou, I can get the talent card extra damage onto whichever character has taken the Dendro damage from the Bloom core. But you can see here my opponent is actually not playing any of the Void Rifts. This is definitely because they don't have any 3-cost cards in their hand currently. Though they are doing a lot, and I mean a lot, to get another attack out here, but that double macaroni is nicely keeping both alive, I know, and the Yumkasaurus. And now that they are gonna be running out of Beidou Burst, this is where it's my time to, you know, stack up that HP once again and start slowly taking out the opponent. Not to mention we got Fortress of Meropide. Once again, in matches like this, Fortress of Meropide, if you get it round 1, you want to play it round 1, and matchups like these are part of the reason why you want to perhaps run double Fortress of Meropide, because it's of course one of the best counters to decks like that, which rely heavily on action cards. Of course I was a little stupid here, I didn't play the Fortress of Meropide early. That was simply because I was a little stupid here, I should have already have played Fortress of Meropide of course. If you're wondering, yes, I am sacrificing Aino. I was kind of hoping on drawing a harvest time and some HP from that, but unfortunately I was not able to.
Playtime's over.
But it's nothing to worry about. We do have to be well fed and sturdy, so we should be able to tank just about all the damage my opponent is able to do. Of course, at this stage of the game, they have almost ran out of cards. They have played multiple, like we've seen Ball Princess already, we've seen what all have we seen? Cryo's Resonance, I think, was there earlier. Anyway, the point is that they are, you know, running out. They are running out of tricks they can do. Unsurprisingly, we will be playing the second harvest time here. Of course, my luck, I'm going to be trying double harvest time after fishing for it last round, but it's not a big deal. Macaroni is a huge pull. You can already see we've healed back to 7 HP from 1. But we can follow this up with a Shudong plus a Maiden's Beauty plus Macaronis. And look at that. This is what I'm talking about. From 1 HP to 11. And that's enough for my opponent to give up. So yeah. Quite the simple decks actually. All you need to do is stay alive. And with that, I'll see you all next time.